I'm ready.
Yeah. Excellent. Hello everyone. Welcome to a new episode of one-on-one interviews. Today from Vitoria, special guest, great guy, great coach, strength and conditioning coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball, Regev Fanan, aka Reggie. Welcome, brother. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me.
As I said, Reggie is our new guest, and I cannot wait for the interview to start so I can learn new things from Reggie. But before I share with you what we are going to talk about in the main part of this interview, I want to tell you that last week, as I was reading a book of David Goggins, I thought a little bit about you, about all of you who are listening to this episode and all of you who are looking forward to a new episode of one-on-one interviews. Why this book reminded me of you is actually one sentence on the page 14 that says this: human beings change through study, habit and stories. So why this phrase resonated with me is the fact that in these interviews we are trying to share stories of our guests. Today it's a story of Reggie, and I really hope that you will find a piece of motivation from this interview by knowing Reggie's story, and also I hope that through these interviews you will also be able to learn new things and be a little bit more courageous, especially when it comes to connecting yourself with people like Reggie, like me, or even some other strength and conditioning coaches that you would like to contact with, and connect with. As I promised, I will tell you what to expect from the main part of this interview. We have really nice topics. The first one is going to be about communication. Communication between medical staff, coaching staff, and support staff, strength and conditioning coaches. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about mobility and strength training. We're going to talk about load monitoring and management during the season. And we're going to talk briefly about recovery with special focus on sleep quality tracking. So without further ado, I really want to start this interview. And I'm going to start by asking, how did you end up being a strength and conditioning coach? Because I know that you played basketball professionally, so I would like to hear a little bit more about your background in professional basketball as a player, and then how did you end up chasing your career as a strength and conditioning guy?
Okay, first of all, I would like to say thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I know you have really distinguished guests, and it's an honor for me to be one of those guests. For your question, I will answer that I started as a young player in Maccabi Tel Aviv junior club. I grew up like every other kid in Maccabi, and then when I finished my junior club, I was part of the roster in Maccabi for 8 seasons, playing from 2000 till 2008, something like that. I've had the privilege of being a teammate of maybe part of the biggest players in Europe: Anthony Parker and Sharas and Nikola Vujicic and David Blue and Derek Sharp, Yotam Halperin, Gur Shelef, Tal Bush, and all of these guys. I sort of grew up with them. I was never the most talented player, of course, but I worked really hard. Okay, I was a very good teammate. At some point, I understood that my career as a basketball player is not going very far. And for me, I was always very connected to all the physical work of weight room and stuff on court and taking care of my body. I was really obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I decided that I need to make a better career of this part than to be a basketball player, so I started studying. And then, while I was still part of the roster in Maccabi, I was given the job as a head strength and conditioning coach for the junior club of Maccabi Tel Aviv, a part which I did for 10 seasons. Then after 2 or 3 years, I also stopped playing. And then I started working in men's first division teams in Israel, and some under 16, under 18 national team of Israel. When I finished that part, I came back to Maccabi. I was 2 seasons assistant strength and conditioning coach for Mr. Avi Kowalski, who was the head strength and conditioning coach. Then after these 2 years, I got the job as head, and I've been doing it ever since. I mean, the last 6 years.
Excellent, excellent. I really like it. When you were starting to build your career as a strength and conditioning guy, did you have any mentors?
For sure, I had many mentors. You know, all of the, let's say, older generation of trainers in Israel, which worked in Maccabi and in national teams, were really helping me and teaching me. And you know, I grew up as their player, so I really known a lot of the stuff that they were teaching. I was really into it. And as a young strength and conditioning coach, I asked so many questions, and you know, I was bugging them all the time, what to do, how to do, why you do this and not that. Like, so I had really good mentors. Of course, also Francesco Cusolin, the Italian guy, which is amazing for a lot of European guys, I think, was one of my mentors, and an address that I can ask. And until this day, actually, even though I'm working in Maccabi, which is probably the highest level, I still have mentors. You know, even you and me, we communicate, and with some other guys that I have, some other friends, strength and conditioning coach, always like mindstorming and speaking to each other. Now, maybe I wouldn't call everybody a mentor, but I think always it's good to have someone to ask the question you're not sure of, you know. And one thing really important I want to add in this subject is I've had really good mentors, not only strength and conditioning coach. I think also you can learn so much from doctors, from physios, also from basketball coaches. I can tell you that a really good friend of mine is Coach Dan Shamir, a basketball coach, and Coach Yanis and David Blatt, and all these guys. It's really, I think they taught me a lot also, maybe without even meaning it. They teach you so much stuff about how to manage the system better. Okay, maybe they will not tell me what to do in the weight room or something, but like how to manage your team. They teach us so much, we are not even aware of it. But if you think back of basketball coaches that you worked with in the past, you can see that you study so much from them as well. So it's not only strength and conditioning coaches as mentors, but I try to use all the good people around me to learn, because it's okay, they trust me, I do my job, but I think I can absorb so much from them as well.
Perfect. I really like this point, because in order to grow in this field, you have to be able to learn from everyone. As you say, it's not only to have a mentor or to have like a great assistant who you work with. It's learning from everyone in the system, from players, from coaches, from medical staff, even like from sport directors and management of the club. You can learn a lot, because in order to be here at the highest level, you really need to know how the whole system functions, you know. So I really like the point. The only thing is that you have to be open-minded in order to do it, you know. If you're a very, very closed-minded guy who is just focused on strength conditioning and a little bit of recovery, it's not gonna bring you far, right? So I like it. I think that this fact that you used to play as a professional basketball player in Maccabi, and now you're a strength and conditioning coach in the same club, it's really a unique case in Europe, because you won quite many titles with the club. As you said, you were there when they had like the best years, the most successful years in the club's history, and now you're a strength and conditioning guy. I really don't know anyone else who played at the professional level and managed to reach this success that you had. But as you said, I like how you didn't even mention winning titles, but you said that those years helped you because you were surrounded by great players and great coaches, so you could be able to learn a lot. One question about learning and studying. Of course, we learn from each other, we learn from our mentors, but I wanted to ask you, what do you think about formal and informal education? How is your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I think it's a must. Okay, I think it gives you the base. Okay, it helps you build the better building that you want to build. Without that, you cannot take the steps forward that you want. But also at the same time, I would say that after you have your formal education and doing what you have to do, I think that the development just starts from there. This is just the small push forward, and from that you just gonna have to keep learning and developing and go see and work and like see the best guys, see the worst guys. I think that this is maybe it's the informal side, but it's as important, not less than the formal education. So the combination of those, I think, is a must.
Perfect, perfect. Can you share with us a little bit your favorite books in the field?
Well, I would go old school with you, okay? I'm not, I wouldn't lie. Mike Boyle, The Functional Training for Sports, for sure. Alan Stein, Raise Your Game. And also, I don't know if it's really connected to the functional work, but I would say Relentless by Tim Grover. It's kind of American, it has a lot of cliches, but I like it. I would say your book, I haven't read it yet, but for sure I will like this book.
You will read
it. But these are, I think, also, you know what, I will add another book. It was given to me by my team doctor, which is a high-level doctor, which is a good friend of an NBA doctor, Dr. Brian Cole, the basketball anatomy. Like gives you like a very simple recap of exercises and which muscles and anatomy. Like I like the basic stuff. I like to keep it really, something that I will have to go over again, even though I know it's things that I know and have seen, but always I think it's great to repeat and read again and to stay fresh and to learn new things. So these are my top books, I would say.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we could say that Tim Grover's book is kind of like field related because it's like especially related to basketball. So do you ever read something that is like not related to the field, more like self-help books? Do you have any favorite books in that section?
You know what, I would actually say, I don't know how connected everybody is to this field, but there's I don't know if it's written in Hebrew. It's called The Power of Subconscious, and I would like to relate it to sports. I mean, it's not specifically about sports, but I think, if you read this book, you can throw it to many fields of life. And I read it a long time ago, and it made a huge impact on me. And just to try to realize how your subconscious makes reality. I know it sounds a cliche, but especially in sports, like the way you think is the way that you perform. The way that you perform is the way you think, and vice versa. And I really believe in it. So it's something that I read as a young trainer, and I really liked it without even meaning it to aim it to basketball. But I found it really, really related, and I really liked it.
Nice. I still believe that you're a young guy, So
after all these flights in EuroLeague, I feel so old, but I'm happy that I'm still young.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Let's take a short break, and then I guess we are going to the most important part of the interview with the questions I said before, okay?
Right.
Perfect. Hello people, welcome back to the main part of today's episode with Reggie from Maccabi, and we will start by talking about communication. Communication is one of the most important things when it comes to sound work environment. It's something that in my book I put that as the first chapter, which was kind of surprise for many people who read it. But for me, it's a starting point to good work, especially if you want to work with elite teams and elite coaches, elite players in the end. So let's talk a little bit about it, especially the relation between support stuff, like strength and conditioning stuff, with medical stuff and coaches. What is your opinion on it, and how do you see it, and how do you handle it in your practical experience?
Well, first of all, I really think it's one of the top categories I would put, as you did, as working in a big club, because as you progress and go to work in big clubs, you will see that the people around you, the number of people around you is really big. Like you have so many physios, you have so many doctors, you have so many basketball coaches, you have so many players, media staff, everybody, and everybody needs a piece of your knowledge, piece of the info that we have on players, and everything. So much stuff is being done on a daily basis in the weight room, on the court, and you have to share this info, and you have to keep everybody on the same page, because you know, every small mistakes that you do, even small miscommunication with your physio guy, or even something that you did that the coach doesn't know and didn't want you to do. So all of this stuff are really, it sounds small, but it makes like a big impact on a system, that you have to find ways to keep all of the parts relevant, aware of whatever is done on the same day. So most of NBA teams like have the athletic trainer, which is in charge of all this stuff, but not many teams in Europe have this. I mean, I'm not an athletic trainer, I'm just a strength and conditioning guy, the head strength and conditioning guy, but I try to be that guy that shares the info with everyone, like making daily reports and share it with all staffs, like medical staff and coaching staff and my managers and the media. Weekly schedule sending to everyone, and like also whatever player did in every day. And I think it's really important to share this info just to keep everyone on the same page, because it's hard, you know, you travel and you go to different facility and you don't have your stuff, and sometimes it feels like I don't want to say mess because it's organized mess, okay, but still I think it's so important, and you have to keep everyone aware. And also I think it helps me a lot to know exactly what I'm doing when I'm planning my day with this player, when I'm planning the week or the month. It gives me a better picture, okay, when I have everything like written down in documents, and I can share, and I send to the doctor, and I send to the physio, and I send to the coach. So I think just to keep everything well organized and everyone on the same page is really important to have this communication, because maybe we have the same interest for the team, but we all think different, okay, and it's okay. I think different than the physio, and physio thinks different than the doctor sometimes, and I think different than the basketball coaches. Everybody looks from his perspective, but you do need to find the same patterns and the same working strategies for the players and for the club, and sharing the info and managing all these staff members is really, really important. Now I've had really good staffs in Maccabi all these years, you know, of great doctors and great physios and great basketball coaches. So it wasn't very hard. It's intense, like, you know, managing all this info and working, you know, on all these documents. Sometimes people laugh at me that I'm more time on the iPad than I am on the weight room or court, but it's part of it. Like today, it's not enough to be a good strength and conditioning coach. You have to be manager of your field. It's like I'm the manager of my field. So I'm not just a coach, I'm managing what I do. So I think it's really important to do it.
Excellent. Can you share with us a little bit from your practical experience? Give us some examples of these reports. For example, when you're talking to medical staff or to coaching staff or to players, what are the key information that you are trying to share with them?
Well, if you ask me one thing I need to throw out right now to the air, I would say it's the weekly load of every individual player that you need to send, because, you know, playing in local league and playing EuroLeague, sometimes players get lost in the schedule. Like sometimes you can have a player that played 30 minutes on a Sunday, then 10 minutes on a Thursday, and we had a day off and somebody came to do individual work. So I would say that my favorite report anyway that I send every weekend to all staffs is the individual load. It's something very simple that I created. You know, it's a very simple document, everybody can do it. It's like I keep track of every player, what he did every day, how many times he lifted per week, how many individual work he had, how many days off, when did he do massage, when did he do treatment. and like I send it to the staff at the end of the week so everybody can see, and I give colors and grades for each player. So if you see a player in red colors, then you know this player is high loaded. If you see someone in green or yellow, you can see it's a player that we can push more, or maybe add some extra work on the court or in the weight room. Also, we have a great development staff that's working with the players in the mornings and when they don't suit up for a game or anything. So I would say that this report is the most
common one.
Most common and most useful, because sometimes coach, he has this load of video and games and he doesn't remember what the guy that didn't play in the league game did. So you have to help everybody, keep track.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. One question, when it comes to monitoring load and putting the number behind the work, what are the metrics that you are using in order to talk about the weekly load?
Well, actually, it's something very basic. As I told you, I just use the units of practice, and I just use the minutes played per game, and I try to create from this. We're not using any cheap, last season in EuroLeague we had the Zephyr system that we used, but we didn't get anything relevant and helpful for practices. We use very basic stuff as polar belts for practices, and I get just all the info to see. So basically it's something that I create, and I just try to keep track of number of units of practices, number of lifts, number of minutes played per game, how many games per week, and that's basically what we do. Very simple.
Excellent. I like it because everyone expects that now we are going to talk about with every guest of mine, because we are talking about EuroLeague or Spanish level. I think not everyone, but a lot of people expect that everyone is going to use the latest technology, everyone is going to use sensors, everyone is going to talk about metrics like player load, accelerations, decelerations. But what I like here is that we talk before the interview about the experience with current head coach, and you said that your communication is really, really good, that he's a great guy, great person who likes to listen, who likes to ask for the opinion. And I think even though we are in the era of modern technologies, and I'm saying that we should use it because here in Baskonia we are using some of the technologies, but for example, what I can honestly say that sometimes it happens that we have new technologies but old school coaches who don't get too much into micro technology. So sometimes if you go 10 years, 20 years back and you make reports with simple stuff, as you say, with minutes trained and minutes played, the most important thing behind this report is to make decisions, to individualize the program of everyone on the team. And then once you make decisions and once you separate guys into high loaders, low loaders, medium loaders, and so on, you don't need to have always micro technology. Of course, micro technology will offer you much more. You will be able to investigate a little bit more, movement patterns, and so on. But I think first starting point for every strength and conditioning coach should be get your data and try to communicate well with head coach in order to make decisions. And then later on start to think about polar system, micro technologies, or whatever the technology is. I
really agree with you, and I want to add one thing about all the technologies. As everybody forgets, there's one big problem. You're not allowed to wear it in games. And this is one of the things that must be improved, because no matter what you do, most of the load is in the game. So if you don't have the info of game, okay, maybe you can build algorithm and create something. But if you don't have the actual load of the game, then I think it misses the point. Of course, it's something every system should get better and use. But I think all sides needs to be thought of, and to be honest, I like things to be stupid and simple, okay? I don't like coming to my coaches and always talk by graphs and numbers. Sometimes you just need to see really clear stuff, right in front of you, to keep things simple. Okay, I can, if I show my coach this player is in a red zone, then he understands, okay, this player needs to have better recovery time. But I'm trying to, be really basic. This is what I believe. Sometimes I see trainers who are trying to be crazy technology guys, and I feel, sometimes I feel so stupid next to these guys, but sometimes I see trainers trying to overdo it. And I think it misses the point because you work in a big staff and you really need to give good info, simple info to help coaches reach better decisions. You don't need to put your basketball coach in a situation that is lost in numbers or lost in graphs. Like, he has enough work as it is, he has enough concerns. His basketball coach is probably the hardest job in the world. So if you can make his life simple and just give him colors, numbers, show him, I think this is the best way.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned one thing which is kind of problem here in Europe because EuroLeague forbids, at least at this moment, as well as ACB League, I think Israeli League as well, to use any chips or micro technology sensors during the games. So that was one of the biggest problems, that we were using microtechnology in all of our trainings during the week, but then when it comes to real game, we didn't have the exact data. And in order to deliver weekly report of like load, not only training load, but game load, because it's not only one game. So one game, maybe you can, as you say, find some kind of algorithm, but we are talking about 2-3 games per week. So it's kind of almost the same amount of game load is done in the practices. So 50-50 during 1 week, we have to find, as you say, good way to interpret those data. And what we did was we would record with our microtechnology, we would record all of the preseason games. So I would have data of 5-6 games of every player on my team, and I would know exactly for 1 minute played on the court what would be his average player load, and I would multiply it after a EuroLeague game. So that's one way, but as you say, it's still not completely accurate, but it's one way to represent data, even though I think we still have to look for the best way to do it, and it's to put microsensors
I'm sure
inside.
It's a matter of time because sports world is going to technology's direction, and if you don't get updated and stay tuned, so I think like in 10-15 years from now, if you don't have that knowledge and technology, it will be very hard to work in the field. Like, this is the place that it's going.
Excellent. I really like that we mentioned it. Let's go to some very practical topics. I said we're going to talk about mobility and strength training, something that is always a hot topic for strength and conditioning coaches. So I would like to hear your opinion on mobility, how much time you devote, what is your philosophy in training, do you have some kind of like small mobility sessions prior to basketball because you see it like as a very important quality of players, or you just try to put it in many parts of your practice so players can stay mobile enough? So what's your opinion?
Well, actually, I think it's okay, although it's kind of different, strengthening and mobility. Sometimes I feel that in the weight room I can really help my players with the mobility, like working in a good ranges of motion, trying to help them stay mobile. I mean, give them one exercise, let them move and work their hips after, because right now the hot topic in basketball, let's say, is the hip. All the hip mobility and everything, and especially with big guys, is really hard for them, especially with the life of sitting a lot of plane hours. So the mobility really became something really important in basketball, but I don't think it's only a matter of taking your players and move their legs in a certain direction, or just giving them hip mobility exercise or lower back or whatever. Is like really you have to find the right amount and the right combination between strengthening and keeping them mobile. Okay, I think that as I said, especially with the big guys, but the load is so high now that it impacts everybody. And one of the things that gets the let's say that the quality of mobility is becoming poor is because due to high stress level. And also we are using this, our physios in Maccabi, they're doing excellent job in it, like putting guys on the table and working on their mobility and then sending them to me and doing all sorts of stuff in the weight room and on court preparation. I really like that my guys are coming before practice or before games, and they have like the routines that we build for them. If some guys for lower back, some guys for their hips, some guys for their ankles, like doing some exercise to improve that level. Because if you have guys with good mobility, good ranges of motion, I feel you will have healthier guys. And if you have guys that are doing these routines, you know, even after they go from a flight to their room, and you see, you know, I sometimes walk and see what the players are doing, and you see like a player stretching his lower back or just doing hip stuff, then for me, you know, it's like heaven, you know. I'm very happy about this. So I think that mobility is a big part now to help guys move better on the court. But also I think it's finding the right combination between strengthening and mobility, because sometimes you get players from different programs that are just, they look like bodybuilders and not really knowing how to control their bodies or move their bodies to all planes of motion in the right way. And you have to help them to teach them how to move their body better, okay? Even by a simple squat, you know, you can help your player improve his hip mobility and hip stability by just teaching him the proper way to squat. So I think that you have to learn your player's ability and your player's habits, and then help him with these areas.
Excellent. Let's connect a little bit the previous topic of communication with mobility. You said that physios are doing a great job. So you said before that you are managing things and you are interested in everything what other people on coaching staff and medical staff are doing. But I want to know if together with physios at the beginning of the season, or when you sign a new guy for the first time, are you running some kind of tests to detect some kind of mobility issues? Do you share between each other the information, and how do you finally put it in practice?
Well, actually, it's a good question. I think that most of the big clubs do it, but we also perform FMS tests. It's like a developed FMS test that we're doing with some Israeli company. It's called Physiomax. We've been using it for the last 8 years. It's part of our, let's say, accepting our player to the system. One of the tests that he does is this functional movement test. We take videos of it and pictures, and we get a full analysis of every player. You know, new players, you get new info. The players that have been with the club for 1 or 2 or 3 seasons, then you get a place to compare. If he had improved his ranges of motion, the way he lands on 2 feet, the way he jumps on a single leg, the way he does a split squat, like, so you can get all this info. After we get all the info, we build some strategy to help him, some, let's say, lifting routine. I do the lifting routines, some injury prevention routines that I do together with the physios and doctors. We build something that we believe in. And like then from the minute that we get a player in August, then we can build something right for him to help him with all of his weaknesses. Let's say if he has a poor ankle mobility, and if he doesn't know how to land on one leg, and if he doesn't have the shoulder mobility, you can track some problems. I cannot say that always it will give us a full picture of if we know when a player and how a player will get injured. But for sure it gives you a picture of how you can help your player trying to stay healthy for a longer duration, and trying to make him perform better. So for sure one of the tests that we do is functional movement, and after that we sit on the results, on the numbers, and we build some strategies and ways to work around it.
Excellent. One question. If you have a super stiff guy, his back is stiff, his hips are stiff, his hamstrings are tight, his ankles are not mobile enough, he has a lot of problems. His shoulders are not mobile enough. As a basketball player, where would you attack first?
Well, as you say, okay, probably you and me will have this kind of players. Mostly it will be either the big guys or the older guys, who've been playing in the NBA or EuroLeague and had so many games in their lives. So sometimes you get a player like this and you know that these are his problems. I think it's a combination of all. Like I think is a proper amount of stretching, is a proper amount of lifting, because as I told you before, I think sometimes lifting can really help with a player's flexibility and mobility. Like lifting the proper way will help in so many categories, not only by strengthening. We do a lot of foam rolls, we do a lot of stretching, physios and myself, a lot of mini band work just to open up ranges of motion. Basically, that's it, nothing too crazy, but I think you have to find the right combinations, as I told you. Like, there's not one thing that I can say that this is the magic pill. I think you have to work around all of it. First of all, I think you need to recognize where does the problem comes from, like what keeps him so unflexible. Okay, maybe it's the hip, maybe it's the lower back, maybe it's some knee problem, maybe some ankle problem. Like first find the problem and work around it. Then after you know the exact problem, then you can focus on the areas that you feel that are limiting the player, and then try to help him through that.
Nice. I like that you mentioned strength as a part of active mobility work. So let's go into this direction. Strength training, how important it is for you in your overall coaching philosophy, and what does it mean for your players?
Well, first of all, if you ask me, I think it's most important thing in my area of work is the strengthening. I mean, lifting for sure. I will say one sentence that Norris Cole, an ex NBA championship, told me when he came to Maccabi, and I saw him lifting very heavy. And one day I came to him and asked, "You like lifting heavy even before a game?" So he said, "Lifting heavy is the best prevention I can say helped me in my career." And I really remember this sentence because I was in this direction before he told me, and after he told me, it was like the final stamp. Yeah, I felt so happy when he told me that, because I feel that power and strength are the basic of every basketball player. Not only basketball, but let's focus on basketball now. I cannot ask my guy to jump high if he doesn't have the good muscle mass. I cannot ask him to sprint if he doesn't have the strong legs. I cannot ask him to bump someone or push or make a good screen if he is not strong enough in his upper body. I cannot ask my guards to make three-point shot if they are really weak in the shoulder girdle or they don't have any upper body strength, although shooting is from the legs, but I think it's a combination of all. So for me also lifting is best prevention. Lifting is a top for performance. And if you ever had to tell me that I need to choose one thing for my job, what will I do with my players just to help them, I would say lift. Of course, it's everything. It's the agility, it's the mobility, it's the running in all planes of motion and movement. But for me, a basketball player who doesn't lift is not really a basketball player. Like, I don't think you can survive without lifting, especially not in the new age of so many games and athleticism. Like for me, you cannot develop an athlete without putting him in the weight room and do the proper process and progress, and like you cannot avoid it. It's something that if you have a player that you get which is 30 years old and never lifted in his life, for me is a player that is really prone, is a player with bad habits, and someone is really hard to help him. So I think that lifting, okay, of course every basketball player is a different individual, and for every player you have to find the right exercises and the right weights that he does and the right amount. You can never go crazy, you can never push players to their limits, because still they are basketball players, they need to play basketball. This is the main job. The lifting maybe for me is most important, but it's only part of the day. It's not, you don't sign a player to have a great lifter, okay? You sign a player to have a great basketball player. But I think the most important way for me to help is to teach him lift, to make him lift, okay? To make sure that during the week, during the month, he has the high number of times he went into the weight room. Also, I think that weight room can be great recovery from time to time when you want to take players less time on the feet, on the court. Like, you can put them in the weight room and find the right exercises and the right number of repetition sets to build like a recovery practice. Like, the weight room, I think, is the most important station of the basketball player outside the court. So for me, I think that lift is right there.
Excellent. I will still ask you this question, even though you said that one of your favorite books is Mike Boyle's Functional Training for Sports. So basically, I guess over 90% of guys who are watching this read this book and know the content, so they know probably the philosophy of exercises that you are using. But I'm gonna still ask you, what are your favorite exercises that you do with basketball players?
I would say deadlifts in all variations, especially single leg. I would say lunges to all planes of motion, if it's forward, side, diagonal. Squats for sure, all ranges, all variations. I really like dumbbell work, all presses. Pull-ups I love, but for some big guys is a problem because long ranges of motions. Basically that's it. I would say squats, lunges, deadlifts, all sorts of pushing with dumbbells. I think like really these are my favorites.
Excellent. When it comes to organizing lifting sessions during the week, especially during the in-season, where you have the greatest challenge because we play 2-3 games. Some of the games include traveling to places where you don't have facility. In the hotel, they might have very poor gym with one treadmill, one bicycle, and if they have a gym in the hotel, so you really cannot count on it. How do you organize your work? What are the minimum standards that you have during the week with your team, and what option is for you the best?
Okay, well, while traveling to EuroLeague games, most of the teams, such as yourself, have a good facility when we can use the weight room from time to time when we need. Most of the hotels have some decent, I wouldn't say good, but some decent weight rooms. But as you know, and you do it as well, always carrying my big bag with tons of equipment and trying to improvise some kind of, small weight room, if you want to say, taking over some room at the hotel, some meeting room at the hotel, and just building there some stuff, putting some foam rolls, putting some mini bands, putting some agility ladders, some stuff that you can work with just to help the player still somehow in this crazy load of traveling in games, still somehow maintain good muscle mass by doing some short activation, let's say. Okay, so when we're at home and playing in Israel, it's very easy. I make sure everyone gets in the weight room. Everyone has different program. We individualize stuff. Like, I don't feel that big guys need to lift as guards, and like every player that gets in the weight room gets his program. But also in away games, like if I take a meeting room and I build something there, so I would text or just write on a board every exercise for every position, guard or big man or forward, whatever. Some guys will do their prevention routines. Sometimes we'll do body weight exercises or whatever we decide that needs to be done. But I think also regarding your last question before is I think that it's a really crucial activation lift, maintaining the muscle mass to your body as prevention and as performing in these kind of loads, because I feel that sometimes these loads and you have long flights and sometimes you miss lifts, you miss meals, sometimes the muscle mass, you lose some muscle mass. And I think healthiest players and healthiest teams are teams and players that maintain good muscle mass during season, also during high load of games. So I try to find, even if the options are not great in some not so good hotels, I try also, always to find the place to have the players working on their bodies, not only on the basketball court.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So what would be the best frequency per week of going to the gym? If, for example, let's say if you're staying at home, you're not traveling, you have Thursday or Friday EuroLeague game at home, and then on Sunday maybe you will hop on the bus and go play away game in Israel, or you stay in Tel Aviv. When would you organize lifting sessions?
Well, first of all, the number I would say.
Sorry, how do you organize it also? Do you separate lifting sessions from basketball, or you do it before? How do you organize
First of all, it depends on the guys. It depends on the time of playing. I try to my ideal is to separate, but sometimes you don't have a choice because your schedule is kind of limiting you. So most of the time, probably we will lift before basketball practice, no matter if it's a taping practice or non-taping practice. But I try every player to lift 2 or 3 times a week, and have another 1 or 2 more times of just prevention, like going into the weight room, doing his activation that is built especially for him, like a 15 to 20 minutes routine just to get his body better and doing his rehab stuff. But if you ask me what's my ideal number, is 2 to 3 during season if you play twice a week. Sometimes it's hard to do it because sometimes you have small injuries and sometimes you have fatigue of players, but I'm trying to put everyone in the weight room for like twice a week. We never go in as a team because every player has a different schedule. Like, okay, everybody plays the same day, but the load is different on different guys, and not everyone is on the same page on this. So if a guy plays under 15 minutes on a Sunday, so I have no problem putting him in the weight room on Monday. If I have a guy who played 28 or 30 minutes on Sunday, then I will keep him off the weight room on Monday. So you have to really find the right schedule for every player and try to get him on different days, but still having the same units of strength.
Yeah, and then sometimes it can happen that guy plays 30 minutes on Sunday, we win, he kills the game, he scores 25, and then on Monday he says like, I want to lift. Yes. So sometimes just staying with this positive attitude, sometimes it can happen, and then even though we know that maybe the outcome of that strength training is not going to be the best, especially if he wants to work a little bit more on power, and then that he might be fatigued to do like the best power training, you still know that if player feels confident and ready here, that you should follow it. You should never say
I think it's a really important point what you say, because sometimes players come to me and say, I want to lift after basketball practice. Now, personally, I don't believe in it. Like, I feel that if you have a player that is practicing for 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, his nervous system is already broken down. I mean, he's just destroying muscle still, and he wants to do some lift. So sometimes, even though I don't agree with this and I don't like it as a principle, but sometimes you have to find a way, okay? You have to, if a player really wants to do it, you have to find a way how to sometimes be a good listener and find the right amount of sets or reps to do with it, and to still keep everyone satisfied, and to have your player like trusting the process and feeling a part also. I think is an important point what you said. You have to have your principles, but you have also sometimes to be a good listener, or sometimes to help the player confidence and feeling. Because even though you have your principles and the way you want to work around it, bottom line, your player needs to feel good with his body. Okay? If you're doing an amazing job and your player keeps telling you for like 10 straight games, hey, I feel so tired, I feel out of shape, and I feel my legs are not working for me, then maybe you need to change something. So I think part of the job is being good listeners, is to put our limits, but also to be really like work around it, find the ways to help your player.
I like it. When the last question about strength, when it comes to lifting and improvements, what are the seasonal goals for your athletes that you consider the most important when it comes to strength and lifting?
I think it's different when you consider different guys with different ages, different backgrounds, different loads in the season. if you ask me what's my top goals with my players, first of all is to keep them with low body fat percentage. Okay, make them stay on the same weight if it's a good weight, even adding some kilos of muscles if possible during the seasons. But I really want my players to work in a specific way that they will always stay very explosive. Okay, that they will have good performance on the court, feeling good with their bodies. I would say that numbers, I do it together with the nutritionist. We're really trying to be focused on the numbers of the body fat percentage, of seeing how the lifts affect on their body weight, and seeing that we have process with the young players that, let's say, we want to add some muscle mass and help them become bigger, or sometimes we have a player which is I wouldn't say overweight, but needs to lose some body fat percentage, like being right on top of this. When we come in the weight room, like, we try to be as specific and explosive as we can. I mean, I would never take a player and try to kill him in the weight room. I would always try to help him find the lift that is right for him and for his abilities, and then make him perform in the practice or in games, no matter what. But I think that the numbers of the body content is really important for me.
Excellent. And you mentioned before recovery inside of the lifting room. So I wanted to ask you to give us an example. How would you organize it? I guess it would be maybe Monday practice after Sunday's game, or maybe if you play Thursday EuroLeague game, maybe Friday would be that day when you would apply this recovery strength lifting. So can you give us a little bit more like real example? How would you organize it when you said like the exercise selection, reps, sets, and so on?
Well, actually, first I will touch the team active recovery and then the weight room active recovery. We have a lot of back-to-back games, and I feel that sometimes the new age believes in active recovery, and I believe it also. I think it's like in our profession to have hands-on and to see your player in days after game, when you have another game the day after, is something really important. So the active recovery for us is really big. Like, we would come to the gym, we would watch a video of the previous game or the next game, whatever coach decides. Then we will do some on-court work with me for like 15 and 20 minutes, which includes some, as we spoke before, some mobility exercises, some stretching, even sometimes like static stretching, sometimes dynamic stretching, depends on the load of the game. We're gonna do some sets of some core work or some body weight exercises just to repair that muscle tissue which was damaged during the game. And weight room wise, I think the best way to recover is to put a player on the bike, like for 15-20 minutes, to make him lift very light for like 2 sets of each body part, nothing too heavy, just to build back the damage that has been done. And I think it's a good way because you try to keep the players sometimes off the court. Okay, sometimes I understand that basketball coaches want to do something tactic light on the court and want to show something, and sometimes light shooting is a great recovery, but sometimes, especially with big guys, you want to keep them less time on their feet. So I think that biking and light lifting with less impact on the knees and ankles can be really good way to help your players recover, because from one side you have a player not in full day off, but from the other side you kept him from jumping or running and sprinting and bumping. So I think is a really good way to recover. I would never go to a high number of repetitions, always staying between, let's say, 6 to 10, sometimes 12, depends on the exercise. Always I would aim for some core work, okay, light stability. I really like single leg work, just to help players, because a lot of times they don't even notice how much time they spend on single leg. If it's landing, if it's jumping, if it's sliding, so much time on single leg, so you have to help your players with that. I really like our active recovery days. I know a lot of times people from our system have had head bumps with me because sometimes they feel we should have a full day off, but I always think we should see the players. We should give them the protein shake, give them the vitamins, see them, touch them and stretch them and see if something is problematic. Because in day off is really hard, even if you have good connection with the player. It's hard to understand by phone call or WhatsApp. Like you have to really be hands-on and you have to see the player. It's enough that you see a player with dry lips to understand that he hasn't drunk enough water after the game. Okay, and it's enough to see a player with red eyes to understand that he didn't sleep. So even these small things, when you get a player after a game, when you have such an intense game after, it can make a full difference. Now you discussed the weight room. Now also in the weight room, when you put a player and you let him do an exercise and he does it and you see he's compensating from one side, you can find really small problems and try to fix it. I mean, speaking to the physios and telling them, or speaking to the guy that does massage, just to be more on that area. So I think it's really important.
Excellent. I really like the answer. When it comes to load monitoring and management, we briefly mentioned in the first part when we talked about reports. I know that it's nowadays hot topic, especially now coming from the NBA. Some players are sit out and it's like a huge debate nowadays. Should players sit out due to load management principles and so on? We're not gonna go into that direction because I think we could talk about it for a long time. I would really like to hear your system of load monitoring and management. How does it work? What are the most important parts in the system for Maccabi basketball?
Well, as you said, this is the place every team is going to right now, especially in the high level. I think that first of all, first goal should be keep your top players always performing, always healthy. And as we spoke about the sleep, and as we spoke about trying to managing players' minutes in the games. So let's say for teams with a very wide roster of players, maybe it's very easy. But for some teams, it's kind of hard because when you sit in the beginning of season together with the coach and together with GM and whoever is involved, so you sit and you look at the schedule and you really try to find the right solutions or the right way to approach every game and to say that you're gonna use this game to sit a player out and use this game to load the minutes better. I think that is really important to do it also in season, like to find the time with your professional staff and communicate about the load of the minutes, of the practices, of building the right kind of schedule to help your player perform much better in this crazy schedule. Because as you know, a team which is successful in EuroLeague can play 80 or 90 games per season. So you really have to find the right ways to work around this load. And as I said in the beginning, one of our way to monitor is to really share all the minutes, all the units of practice, like trying to help guys recover better, even trying to find some games that you know that you will have to sit players out to help them maybe perform better in the EuroLeague game. So all of those things should be considered when you want to monitor the load. Okay, when you work with the systems. Okay, when you work with the Polar, when we work with the sleep system that probably we'll speak later. You should take all of this, put all together, and then find a way of working for the player to perform, of maybe to have a good recovery programs for your player, maybe to find ways during the week how to cut some minutes from Israeli league games that I will not say easy, but maybe easier. Yeah, easier is the word. So using all of this stuff, this sleep technologies, this info of minutes, this info of practices, this is for us is a part, of just without even meaning or noticing, it's a part of the way we manage the team. So I think that it's really important. It's when you work in such high loads of games, it's something that you must monitor. You must be hands-on all the time. You must be perfect. Like coach can ask you sometimes 1 minute after a game what you say about this player, what you say about this player. Maybe we need to recover. Maybe, and you have to have like straight answers, like react immediately. So all of those things that we've spoke about have to help you give better answers, give quick answers, be right on top of it, know at any given time what's the load of every player. Okay, if you see a player is not sleeping enough, if you see a player playing too much minutes, if you see a player when you see a high heart rate or doesn't recover after the practice and his heart rate stays high, like something is wrong. Okay, so all of these things should be taken in consider and solve it.
Excellent. You said that for games you're using minutes in the report for coaches. It's something that I also like to use it because for coaches it's something very easy to understand. You just represent the sum of all of the minutes that player played in that week. But you also mentioned units in practice. What are the exact units? Are they related to heart rate monitoring, some kind of summated?
It's a combination. It's a combination of heart rate, can be a combination of minutes that you played before. It could be a combination of contact or non-contact practices, like that. That the non-contact practice usually will be the easier practice and the contact practice would be higher load. Okay, also we take in consider the volume of practice. If it's 40 minutes, if it's 1 hour and a half, also it's part of the equation. So I think everything, also a lift, you can put the lift also and make it as part of the load. So basically I think that these are the things that needs to be considered.
Excellent. I was thinking also when we were talking at the beginning about reports and how you consider all of the activities in the weekly report for each player. I think it's very important to track all of the activities. As you say, you can track strength training, you can track and divide, as you say, contact and no contact practices, because modern coaches are using a lot of no contact practices, especially one day after the game. If we are playing the next game very soon in like 48 hours, or sometimes like it's not very common 24 hours, but 48 hours to 72 hours, maybe you will use no contact practice. And then to put all of these things inside of weekly report, it's super important in order to make good decisions. Because if you flag someone as a red guy, maybe his load in games and trainings, for example, was not that red, but considering his feedback to you and considering maybe, which coaches are not thinking of, but you as a strength and conditioning coach would maybe think about what happened last week or 2 weeks ago, and that he was overloaded a little bit last week. Maybe this week, even though he should be orange by numbers, maybe you would flag him as a red guy, and then when coach asks you, hey, but why is this guy red? He doesn't show so big numbers, he didn't go to lift so much, he didn't play so many minutes, then you can maybe say, yes, but I flagged him red because he's having some accumulated fatigue and so on. So
yes, I think that this is one of our advantages over everyone else in the systems, is our job is very demanding by the criteria of knowing what was 2 weeks or 3 weeks before, and knowing also what's going to happen in 2 months from now. Maybe I think that our function, the strength and conditioning, we know at any given time what will be the load, okay, and we have everything, all the info with us. So sometimes people in the system might see things for the short term, but we see everything for the long term. And I think it has to be one of our advantages, because if you don't have this advantage, then you're not doing your job in a proper way. Like, you have really to know what's going on in your player 2 months ago and a month ago and a month from now. Like, you have to really think of the big picture.
Great. When it comes to the off season, you are now working for many years in Maccabi, and I believe that during the summertime you're not free agent, you are working for the club. Well, maybe you don't have to be every day in the club, but you have your time for holidays. But for sure, Maccabi stresses the off season as an important part especially to take care of the players under contract. So how do you manage off season with players under contract? How do you manage situations where you sign new players, and how do you balance it with your private life and your desires for holidays?
Okay, first of all, when you are working in Maccabi, your private life is just a recommendation. You don't really have private life. But I will say this, for me, the in-season work is easier than the off-season work, because we have a lot of American guys on the team. And for me, it's very important to stay in really daily touch with everybody. So all of them fly to the States during off season. We will have a few Israeli guys who will stay and work with me, or some national teams, if it's under 20, if it's the men's national team. So we have some Israeli guys that you can control and you can see them. But most of the guys go to the States. And really, I try to create like a system that will keep track of every player. Speak to their coaches that work with them in the States. Also, every off-season phase, I choose 2 or 3 players and I go to visit them in the States, just to work with them for like a few days, to see what's going on with them, to discuss some strategies of work with their trainers over there. Because I understand also what you say about holidays and some recovery, and I understand that they all need their time for this also. But from the minute that I got the job, for me, one of the main goals was to start the season with healthy and performing players. And sometimes you get players maybe coming, I don't want to say completely out of shape, but not in the same line of all players. And some guys come overweight because they had too much fun at the Bahamas with the families, and had a few extra margaritas. So I think for me it's really important to get the guys like working from the off season on their bodies, and improving the things that they need from the summer. I understand that a player finishes the season, he needs his rest, but for me, a week or 2 weeks after, he already needs to start preparing for next season. And I find some days that I say this off season is crazy, I need the regular season to start, because it's really hard, to keep track on WhatsApp and by mails and speaking to this trainer who you never met in your life, and making sure that your player go to lift when you told them that they need to lift. And it's funny that always there's a player that you try to reach for a few days, never answers, and then he answers back, sorry, I was at the gym. Always you have this player. So I really try to communicate almost every day with all of the players in the States. I choose the players that I need to go to visit in the States, and I go, because I think also it puts me in the system in a different light. Like when you just sign a new player and he sees that you care so much and you want him to do well, and wow, you came from Israel to visit me in the States just for 4 days to see I'm working right, I think it puts the system in a much more positive light, and like makes us much more professional. And I want to get healthy players, performing players from the minute they land in Israel. So this is one of my goals, was to build better summers for my players. Of course, I send programs and individual programs for every player, but I think also that the connection should stay in off season. It's really important for me.
Brilliant. As you say, I think it's super important that players see that you care about them, and very often if your level of care is under control, not too much, but also not too less. If you can find the perfect amount of care, and if they can see that you're so passionate about it, players will give you much more. And I think like even sometimes when they're not so into lifting or going to the gym, they will go because you have something to offer, which is this care and passion and behind it. And I think it's in the end they are human beings and they are professional athletes, but they still want people to care about them and be a great support for their bodies.
I totally agree. Like if you want to get commitment from your player, you have to show commitment. Like the player needs to know that no matter what time or where or when, you will be there for him, for his performance. Okay, I think it's really important just to give that example to the player to get back. I mean, it's really something crucial.
Excellent. And I think based on your professional basketball experience with all those guys in Maccabi years, like from 2000 something to 2007-8, wow, I mean, only to be in the locker room with all of those guys and not looking through the lenses of a strength and conditioning coach. That's why I think it's great to have you talk with us and to have a guy in the field who is coming from the field of players. And back then you were not looking at the players in the way that you look at the players right now. So all of this experience that you gained back then and now, it's a perfect combination. I really like it.
Thank you.
Let's go into the last topic. We said we're gonna cover some part of recovery. We're gonna focus especially on sleep, tracking of sleep quality, because I suppose it's one of the most important part of recovery for you and for your players. So let's talk a little bit about it. Why do you consider sleep as that important, and how do you track sleep?
Well, first of all, let's start by saying none of our basketball players sleep. Okay, I mean they do sleep, they don't sleep enough. None of them. No matter which team you go, none of the players sleep enough. We all know it's because of flights, it's because of games, it's because of adrenaline after the games, it's because sometimes, you know, they have personal life. You can understand a player that once a week wants to go out and be with his wife or girlfriend, and some of them have kids. You know, you have some players who finish a game at 11 at night and just go to have dinner at 12 or 1 a.m. and then they have a baby at the house that woke them up at 6. So there you have it, like a prone player for injury. So I think that is really hot topic now, like dealing with all the sleep of players. We were very lucky to have some Israeli company that approached us and asked us to do pilot together with us, because, you know, we are a high profile team and we play so many games and we are a great case study. Okay, just to see how players react to the flights and a high number of games and load and stress. It's really interesting to see and to learn. We are still learning the system and we are still trying to find the patterns of sleep of players. But I think that no matter how good we are at what we do, is if you have a player that doesn't sleep enough, you cannot help him. I can do my job 200% and be the best strength and conditioning coach ever, but if I have a player which doesn't sleep at night, that's a player who wasn't recovered right, that's a player who's not going to build good muscle mass, it's a player who will be out of shape, it's a player who will finish after 6 minutes in the game and will not be in the same tempo. So I think once we can get control of player sleep and have the right info and give them the right tools, it can be a game changer. Okay, if I could make a player sleep 9 hours instead of 7, my success will be huge, because I will have a much more healthy player. He will perform better. He will be sharp. He will be much more concentrated. Like it can solve so much stuff. It can change his eating habits. And I have to say I'm kind of new to this. I never had the tools to deal with the sleep, but now as I see the numbers, it's not something new to me, but it's really like giving me some red signs that to make me understand that the recovery of sleeping for basketball players is really poor. Now there are so many things influence this as a stress, as some player can break up with his girlfriend and it bothers his sleep, and some guy was amazing at the game, but the adrenaline of the game didn't let him sleep until 5 a.m. and he has another game the day after. So really trying to find the patterns and find the right tools together with our doctors and all the staff members to try to figure some ways to help these players to get better recovery, because I feel that if we will do that, like our results, I mean, not speaking about score of games, but players performing on the court will be out of this world, like, because it could be a big change and it could lead to great places. I think that probably all high-level teams at one point or another will have this tool, and we are lucky to have it. And I really think that this is the new thing now, the controlling sleep. Because if you told me, or if you told some other trainers, what is the only thing that you don't know of your player besides asking and getting answers and trusting them, is you come to a player, you ask how you sleep, you say good, poor, bad, you can let them fill some paper and they will say 7, 9, no matter what. But right now, as an administrator, when I get all the numbers and all the recovery details, it's totally different. So of course I'm still trying to get better at it, together with the system and together with the players. And I think one more point about this is, when you have your player involved and you have the player seeing the numbers, it's a good starting position, because you can tell a player he doesn't sleep right or doesn't sleep enough, but when he sees numbers and colors and understands and can see like weekly report, a daily report, when he sees that right in front of his eyes and tell himself that his average sleep time is 6 or 7 hours, then he understands by himself that it's not enough to recover.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that it's an amazing tool, and I'm trying to get better at it together with my staff, but I think it's a game changer, I would say.
Can you explain a little bit how the system works? How do you track sleep? How do you track sleep quality? What are the most important data that you get from it?
Well, basically every player gets a Garmin watch from us, and he has to connect to the app on his phone. Before they go to sleep, they just have to fill out some small questionnaire about the day stress and the number of units of practice that they did. They just press go to sleep, then they go to sleep, and the watch start measuring the data. When they wake up, they fill another small questionnaire, they press wake up, and then I get the info. Now in this info that I can get time they went to sleep, time they woke up, time they think they went to sleep, and time they think they woke up. Sleep disruptions during the night, pulses during the night, some graphs to see, just to see the heart rate, sleep quality that the player thinks he has, sleep quality that he actually had. So, and at the end, it gives me some number of recovery and day readiness, which is really good. Like you can see, high number is for players that recovered well and have a good day readiness, and low numbers for the guys that had a lot of sleep disruptions, took them a lot of time to fall asleep. Maybe some guys that woke up during the night and couldn't sleep again. So you can go get all this data, and it's really nice. Like it's a great learning experience for me, but also it's a great tool to help your player.
Brilliant. I was interested in what kind of technology you use, and it's Garmin watches. 2 years ago in the club, we had also, as you say, it was not a pilot study, it was just like a pilot project with one company from Finland, where we got rings that are connected with your phone. Actually, they're just like collecting data during the night, and then in the morning when you synchronize it with your phone doesn't have to stay in the room. You just synchronize it in the morning with your phone, and it connects to your application, and it also provides more or less the same data as you said, just not to repeat myself again. And then, as you say, when players actually see, when they log in and they see the daily values and then last 3 days values, weekly values, they can really see if they are like dropping down with the quality of their sleep, amount of sleep, how much time they spend in the deep sleep period, and so on. And I really, really liked it. Unfortunately, it was only a pilot project that in the end we didn't continue, but what was great about it, that some of our players got a ring for themselves, because it's not like super expensive. And on the team now, I know one player who is using it every day, and very often I grab his phone when we are traveling, and I check a little bit how he slept last days. And I would love to have it with everyone, but as you say, it can be a game changer. It is definitely a future. I think it's super valuable data that we can really work on. We can encourage players to sleep better, especially when we are on the road to talk with a team doctor, even to prescribe some melatonin pills,
Yes.
which some of the experts would debate that it's not good to use any kind of pills that will put you in bed to sleep. But I also look for placebo effect of this, like even if it's like a very small dosage of melatonin that won't help you that much, but once you give to player a pill that will make him a little bit more calm, make him mentally ready to go to bed, it's beneficial, and you can easily see it by the numbers.
Yes, I would also like to add, and both of us said it before, that the player cooperation and the player understanding of using this device is the beginning of solving the problem, because once they understand they have a problem, this is the most important thing that you need to start solving it. So actually, when this company approached us, they called SleepRate. This is some Israeli development. This is one of the first things that they said, that the players' involvement in this process is a key. Because just a player pressing the button, go to sleep, wake up feeling questionnaire, it doesn't do the job. Mm-hmm. You have to make the player understand that we have a problem, and we don't have a problem because the player is not responsible. It's a problem that we have because we fly a lot. It's a problem we play so much games, and because of the lifestyle of a basketball player in Europe. So this company is trying to help us, and we try to help ourselves. And I think most important is the player needs to help himself. Mm-hmm. Is to understand the problem, and to understand and take the tools that we give him, just to perform better in his sleep. Because when you have a guy that sleeps good, you have a healthy guy ready to perform.
Brilliant. Oh, I love this conversation, man. It doesn't even seem that we are recording. Yeah. But it's so nice. Guys, we are not finished yet. We just finished with the main part of this interview. We are going to take a short break, and we are coming back in a couple of seconds. Guys, welcome back to this very, very interesting episode with Reggie from Maccabi. We are in the last part of this episode with a little bit faster questions, and we're gonna open it with one hard question, because it will be about hard decisions that you made in your career. I would like to know what was one of the hardest decisions that you made.
Well, always I think in our job, I think one of the hardest decisions to make is sometimes to put a player like coming back from serious injuries. like always in your mind you have the doubts, have I done all the right process? Is the player strong enough? Is the player quick enough? Is the player healthy enough to get back? I mean, and all of us in our careers, we have some cases which we try to push it and like be on the limit, and sometimes we succeeded, sometimes we failed. But if you ask me, I had some season with, I will never name names, but I had some guys with hamstring injury and I took some risks and I totally fucked it up. It made me feel really bad, and it was like a trauma. I still remember it. When I have hamstring guys, I try to be much more cautious now. So I think this is the most things that maybe are hard. It's not that it's hard, but sometimes you want to feel like 100%, and sometimes you're not 100% with these decisions, like bringing players back to the court after few injuries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When we are talking about hard moments, I would like to also ask you one thing. It's more just to share the experience of bad moments. That's why we're not gonna name anyone. What were the worst situations that you went through with head coaches? And we can also, after that, mention some of the best moments.
Well, like if you ask me about bad experience with a coach, I mean, I've had the privilege of working with a few of the best in Europe. But also, we had years in Maccabi when we changed some coaches, and sometimes when you change coaches, you don't find really your quick chemistry with the coaches. And I would say that sometimes the planning with the one coach, no matter who, the planning was not good, not for, schedules, for practices. So if you ask me what's the worst experience that I had, is I didn't feel we're on the same page by, building a good system. Mm-hmm. But it was really short and like.
Okay, so what was the best one? And here, I think if you want, you can share the names, because we are talking about positive things.
Well, I cannot point at something really particular, but I would say, that this is the times that you feel that you have coach who really respects you and really gives you the volume that you need, and making you feel meaningful. So I've had the privilege of working with coach Yanis and coach Neven Spachia and coach David Blatt and coach Dan Shamir, and I've had really good basketball coaches. I've had the privilege of working some of the best. I think when you feel from a basketball coach that you are really valuable for the club, then this is the best experience that you have working with a basketball coach. And I think with these coaches I've had, I really felt like this. I really felt that I'm donating my part to the system, because they made me important. They made me feel important. They gave meaning to my job, and they really believed in me as a person and in me as a professional.
That's nice. I really like the answer, because it's really the best thing about our job when it comes to relationship with head coaches. If they have respect and if they will ask you for your opinion, it doesn't mean that whatever you say needs to be immediately put in the practice, but to be listened to and to share your opinion, to discuss a little bit. That's the greatest value that one head coach can give you. And in the end, it's going to be his call about the final decision, but the way how he approaches to you, if he knows how to do it, and if he knows to deliver whatever his thoughts are, I think it's the best thing about our job when it comes to this relationship with head coaches. One question about your activities. I would like to know, because everyone expects that strength and conditioning guys are super active. I wanted to ask you, how often do you work out as a former professional player? How often do you work out for yourself? Do you go to the court, basketball court, to shoot?
To be honest, I quit basketball 8 or 9 seasons ago. I played only once since then. I don't miss it at all because I'm part of the team all the time. So maybe I think that one of the things that I would miss most is like to finish basketball practice sweating together with the guys. But other than that, I don't miss it. I work out like 5 days per week. In the mornings, early mornings, when everything is still quiet and everyone is still asleep and no one to bother me. So this is what I do for myself.
Before breakfast or after?
After, I could never walk out without eating anything. I could not move.
Okay, that's interesting. Excellent. When it comes to, so you said like, I know now your favorite daily like morning routine. When you wake up, you have your breakfast, then you work out. But what is your favorite daily routine? Like the whole day, what is your favorite thing to do?
Well, my first answer was to have the game day, but I heard Justis said it before me, so I want to be original. So I will say the active recovery day. Like I really like bringing the players, taking care of them, communicating with them, see what's up with everyone, discussing with all the staff. This is my favorite routine probably. When I know that my part of the practice is really just to recover the guys, and it really keeps me challenged of finding the ways and like helping them. And outside basketball, for sure, the routines are just being with my kids, being with my family, just chill. That's my favorite routine outside of basketball.
Nice. When you mentioned your family, is it very hard for you to find time for them and to find balance?
It's hard, but it's hard for my wife. It's not hard for me because I'm just not there most of the week. Maybe I will have one afternoon per week to see the kids, but in the mornings I try to help as much as I can. Because we travel a lot and we have so much games. So the time with the kids and family is becoming really valuable and important. And when you work in Maccabi, everything is so busy and stressed. And like even when you are home, sometimes you are not really home because your head is always thinking, oh, I have this injured guy. We just had terrible loss. So always like you're around that. But it's not easy, but I don't complain because I do the job which I think is the best on earth. Like I could not think of anything better to do.
Excellent. What do you consider as the highest point of your career as a strength and conditioning coach?
Well, actually, is winning championships. It's like, sometimes when Maccabi won championships, it was very like expected. Everybody expected for Maccabi to be champions. But now when basketball is so much more dynamic and the schedule is so intense and you have so many games, it's like winning championship became like a reward for the hard work that you do. Because like the process that we go through to EuroLeague season is just crazy, and you feel it on your own. And then when you win championship and you finish season with such relief and such like a great reward for your work, and you know that you travel so many days and you spend so much hours on bus and flights, and then you finish it with a trophy or a ring or whatever. So it's really it's a great feeling, I have to say.
Excellent. I think that the highest number of our audience for this interview are young strength and conditioning guys, because younger generations are really into content from YouTube, and I would like that we spend 1, 2, 3 minutes to talk a little bit to them, and I would like to hear your thoughts, suggestions, recommendations for all of them.
This is a complicated answer because I have many, because also me, I'm still young. I'm not someone who's 60 years old with 40 years of experience, but I did grow up in basketball world, and I do know some stuff and seen some stuff of great professionals around me. So first thing I want to say to young coaches is go see everyone. Go see the worst, go see the best. Go see basketball practices, go see soccer practices, go see judo. Just open your mind to everything. Okay, then you have to gather away and put something of your own. You cannot be a copy-paste coach, because at some point it will finish and it will not be something really fluid. Every time you will change your opinions and you will not have opinion of your own. So I think at the beginning is go see everyone, go hear everyone, ask all the questions in the world, and then after try to find your own way. Okay, because if you don't find your own way, you'll always be depending on someone else's opinions, and you really have to. After a few years, when you work with with junior players or with the low-level clubs, then after that you really have to find your true beliefs, your principles, like the things that you took from there and the things that you took from there, to put them all together to something which is relevant to you, to what's good for your character, for your beliefs, for your personality. Because maybe you can do something amazing on the court, and sometimes I have to say here that I always like coming to the court on game day and seeing your warm-up, because it's really special. But I would never take someone from somewhere else just because it looks beautiful, because maybe it's not appropriate for me, maybe it's not right for me, for what I believe. So always see everyone and take whatever you feel is right, but right for you, not what's right for a different coach. Second thing I would like to say, and it's really important, because I feel that this generation cares a lot about money. And I think, sadly, I say it sadly, we will not be rich from this field. Like, if you're trying to chase big money, you're in the wrong profession. Sometimes I see too many coaches take decisions for money, for better money, without even caring for the personal development in their field, or choosing the right situation for you. So make sure that you are doing this job really for the pure love, because you love to be a strength and conditioning coach and whatever it stands for. Because I see a lot of strength and conditioning coaches who do it, but they're not really into it. And as you know, strength and conditioning is a way of life. Like, it's not something that you have to convince yourself to do. It's something that you were born to do. It's something that's in your personality. So choose your right path, never chase money. Like, sometimes even you have to give up some good options or good conditions just to be in a better club, or be in a better place for your development. So I think that this needs to be well thought of when you take a certain position or trying to develop in this field. One more important thing I would like to say is learn to embrace your mistakes, okay? Because we do a lot. Even if we're amazing in our field, sometimes we do small mistakes, sometimes we do big mistakes. But I think that we need to learn how to get better from these mistakes, because there isn't anyone who doesn't do mistakes. So just do the mistake, but make sure that you get better of it and you don't do it again the same way. And the last thing I want to say is like, wake up every day and like, okay, it sounds, I'm not some kind of guru, but I would say, wake up every day and at the end of the day, try to be a better strength and conditioning coach. Like, make sure that you learn at least one thing at that day. And if you have like every day learning something new, speaking to someone, asking someone about how you do it, and like just learning new stuff and developing yourself, I think at the end of the day, you will be a much more better strength and conditioning coach. Because if I look back, like, I don't know, 8 seasons ago, 7 seasons ago, I would say I was terrible. But I think part of developing in our field is to see how better you got from every season. And if you always have this graph of going up and up and up and up and becoming better, then it means your progress is very good. And like, always be full of doubts, because you know all the good successful people in their fields are people who are full with doubts. If you have a coach who you speak to and thinks he knows everything and seen everything, then his way is very long, and like having these doubts will make you better. It will make you ask the questions. It will make you read more. It will make you ask more, and I think it's very important.
Excellent. Wow, these thoughts were amazing. I think like that young guys as well as experienced guys will listen to this, because I could play it like on repeat. Maybe I put it like I cut it and then I just repeat it. But it's easy to go back a couple of minutes on YouTube. Excellent. Before we finish, I have some quick questions. I'm looking also for the quick answer. It doesn't have to be super quick, but just like quick answer.
No problem.
So, what is your favorite book if you have to choose one book?
Relentless.
Okay, perfect. Do you prefer winning at home or winning away game?
Home.
Home. Okay, makes sense, because the arena is
crazy
really
atmosphere.
Nice. Yeah, crazy atmosphere. What is your favorite sport beside basketball?
Volleyball.
Volleyball. Nice. Kobe or Jordan?
Jordan. No doubt.
Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan, no doubt.
Okay, Kobe or LeBron?
Jordan, no doubt. I would say, I don't know. I would say LeBron. Maybe just because of his physicality. I don't know.
Okay. And last question, it's like very, very tough. McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's, easy.
Excellent. Okay, guys, we came to the very end of this interview. I really hope that you liked this episode. If you liked it, don't forget to share it. If you want to follow our updates on the channel, don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any comments, feel free to comment below or in private message. Feel free to contact us on social media. We are both on Instagram, and I will share here our Instagram nicknames, so you can easily reach us. And I will talk to you soon. Goodbye. Great. Awesome.
I had a really good time.